What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to yet another video. So today I'm going to show you guys how you can tint your own car windows by yourself without having to go to a shop and spend an absurd amount of money. I'm using my daily car right here, which is the Porsche Macan. I already did the back windows. As you can see, this is what it looks like. I'm running 5% tint on the back, and the fronts are completely bare bones right now. I'm going to be finishing off the fronts with 5% as well. And then we're going to go ahead and do the rear trunk. And the film that we're using today is ceramic, and these are all pre-cuts. If you guys want to get your own kit, I'll leave a link in the description below. I like using pre-cut tints. It's just a lot easier to work with rather than just buying a roll of film and then cutting it out by hand. These are all laser cut by machines, so they're super precise, a lot easier to work with. So I got all 5%. That's just the shade that I'm going for. You can have the option to get ceramic tints, standard tints, carbon. Ceramic is the best way to go if you want the most protection from heat, UV rays, etc., etc. And if you're going to be doing it yourself, you're already saving a pretty penny anyway. I suggest just go all the way and get the ceramic material. For example, like this car, if I went to a shop, they would charge upwards of $700 to $800 for the full car tint with ceramic. And this entire kit is just around $100, pre-cut that is. If you were to get the roll, it'll probably be like $50, but honestly, it's worth spending a little bit more just to get the better material pre-cut and just save yourself some hassle. And the windshield I'm not going to do today, but I will be doing the trunk, which is going to be the same process as the windshield. So hopefully this video can give you an idea of how to do this for your full entire car. Okay, so now we have cleaned the windows, and you're going to spray your slip solution all over the window on the outside. And you want to make sure it's opened a little bit so you have some room to work with. And you're going to lay the film on the outside first. That way you can heat it up and squeegee it out to create the curvature. Now you don't have to do this with every car. It depends on your windows. Because the windows on my car are a little bit curved, you want the film to lay on that curve. Otherwise, once you install it on the inside, it's going to be a little difficult. So you want to wet the outside first and make sure you get the right side of the tint. Sometimes we get mixed up. Lay the film on the outside of the glass. Just like that, about halfway. And you got to make sure that the adhesive side is facing towards you. There's of course a liner on it to protect it. But yeah, in order to find out, you just want to peel back some of the lining to see which way the adhesive is going. For this film, it's kind of obvious because on this side it's very wavy and kind of wrinkly, whereas the other side it's very smooth. So usually the side that's a little bit, ugly is the side that it's just a liner. So we're gonna lay it on here and just kind of see if there's any tension marks. Reposition it, and so far there's not too much tension. It kind of lays pretty flat for the most part. I do notice the top is a little bit wrinkly, so we might have to heat that up and kind of smooth it out on top. So we're going to go ahead and use a heat gun just to make the material a little bit softer. Now we're going to take the film and move it up so we can get the bottom nice and curved. So just want to lift it up and just move the film a little bit higher. And as you can see, there's some wrinkles happening, meaning the bottom needs a little bit more curve. Alrighty, so now that you have that done, it's time to install it on the inside. So at this point, you can start peeling back some of that liner. You don't want to peel it all the way, just a little bit on the top, like so. Make sure you're generous with the spray, get it nice and soaked. And moving on to the inside, make sure it's nice and soaked as well. I'm gonna give it another wipe down just to make sure there's no leftover debris in here. And we're going to transfer the film from the outside to the inside. And when you line it up, you want to make sure there's a small gap. That way it won't snag when you close the windows. You can just kind of eyeball it, just make sure it's an even line. You can always make minor adjustments as you go, just because the slip solution allows you to make adjustments and move it around. You always want to be generous with this stuff, because if you aren't using enough spray, it gets stuck and you can't really adjust it anymore. So you just want to make sure you keep on adding more of the spray. And in terms of the edges, you want to make sure they're seated nice and firm into the corners. So you want to make sure it kind of sits in between, nice and deep in there. And the rest of the film just kind of sits into the sides and the edges. So just like that. You don't want it sitting on the outside, you want to tuck it in. And once you're happy with where it's sitting, you want to give it a nice spray down on this side and start squeegeeing it so you can pretty much lock it in place and get out all of the bubbles. Make sure your squeegee is nice and wet as well, and you just want to work your way out, push all the bubbles outside of the glass, kind of overlapping each other, just like that. The reason why it's important to keep your squeegee wet and this side wet is because if you don't, you end up scratching the film, which is not pleasant. You don't want scratches on your film. At this point, you can slowly roll your windows higher. If the film is not cooperating with you, if there's some hesitant areas, don't try to force it, because that's how you're going to get a wrinkle. So the edges over here, there's a slight crease that it doesn't want to go down. So instead of forcing it, we're going to heat it up. That way we're going to allow the material to get a little bit softer. Spray some solution and just slowly, gently work it out, and it should sit nice and flat. So as you guys can see, there's a small bubble over here. We're going to heat it up. Make sure it's nice and wet, and then you can work your way down and get rid of it. Now when it comes down to the small trims down here, you want to be able to tuck it in behind the lining. So you want to get something a little bit sharper like this, and just use this as a way to just tuck it in between that lining where your window is. Now for smaller pieces like this little window over here, you don't need to really shrink anything or heat it up. You can just take it and straight up just install it. Just because it's a small piece, there's not a lot of curvature. So all you have to do is just peel the backing of the materials with the spray, just like that. You just want to kind of wiggle and shift it all the way until it meets the very end. And again, you need a lot of solution to make it nice and slick, because it is a deep corner, so you got to really work it in there. The fronts do look slightly brighter than the rear just because the windshield is not done, and so some of the light is coming in and causing it to look a little bit see-through. But we're going to move on to the rear trunk and finish that off. The process is pretty much just the same.